Good afternoon. Thank you and welcome again for part two of our series that we are proceeding on. Today, I want us to look at a dimension where most of us Christians miss, and when we are dealing with spiritual issues and matters, you find most of people saying we are in a warfare, we are in a battle, we are fighting. Most of the time when I'm teaching and introducing people to this topic, I tell them I don't know last time that I went to fight against powers of darkness, raising against them, saying that I'm waging warfare, because the more you seek God and the more we understand the principles, the more you understand the principles of the spiritual realm, the better you are equipped to deal with the spiritual realm and matters. So you find that when we go to pray, so a person starts to fight against the forces of darkness, and you can ask them, which force of darkness are you dealing with? Which force of darkness are you fighting? The reason why we do all this is because we do not understand. With those who understand this, I once saw a friend of mine. His Paul have written, we do not war against flesh and blood, but against power, strongholds, principalities in high places. But how do we deal with powers and principalities in high places? This is why I would like, just picture this. We stop fighting your battles like a victim and start auditing your enemies like a judge. The people who practice law, they know they have their enemies or they have their adversaries. You've been taken to the court. And if today you step in the courts, if you step in the courts of heaven, you'll find that, or you step in the natural court, you find people who are opposing each other, they are angry with each other, they are bitter with each other. But in the courts, they are not shouting to each other. They are seated there and they are arguing and presenting their cases and matter. Also in the courts of heaven and in the presence of our Father as the final judge and the judge of the whole creation. The matter is addressed following principles and statutes. If the enemy have something against you, it is not by shouting to the enemy that you win. We also make a mistake. We think that we can't deal with the powers and principalities by shouting to them. No. To deal with a principality, you use principles, and that's why it is called a principality. So most believers are exhausted because they are trying to war in second heaven, the realm of conflict, without first getting from the third heaven, or the realm where our Father is seated, where there is the realm of authority. In any other court, if you walk in and start shouting, you will be held in contempt. So the spirit realm is no different. It operates on jurisdiction and standing. If you do not have a barcode, or the right to stand in the presence of the judge in the heavens, in the courts of heaven, your prayers are just noise. Yes. Today we unmask the high court protocols. Let me say this. There are some issues that we have and you deal with in our lives. But our prayers, our shouting, and the deliverance that we know, or the spiritual warfare that we know, it is noise. You don't fight a principality by shouting to it. No. A principality, you deal with it with principles. They are beings that are high-ranking beings. That are high-ranking beings. And these beings, because of their statutes and their possession in the spirit, they even don't inhabit one person. You see a being possessing someone, that's a low-ranking entity. High-ranking entities, they control masses and regions. They control the weather. They control the creation and systems. You find like 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, a whole nation, a whole territory, a whole legion. It is being controlled by these beings. So it's for us here, we here have to understand that our Father, the creator of the whole creation, is our judge, is our advocate. Yeshua HaMashiach is our advocate. And in the courts of heaven, you're also surrounded by a big crowd of witnesses. So whatever I present and whatever will be coming across is for us to understand that every enemy that will be mentioned, you can take that enemy and entity in the courts of heaven, whereby we break what the enemy is using against us. And when we do that, we are set free. So may the Lord help us as we proceed, such that we are able to overcome the enemy. And in the courts of heaven, our Father, the creator of the whole creation, sits as a judge. Jesus Christ, our Savior, he sits there and operates in the courts of heaven as our advocate. Yeshua HaMashiach. The accuser of brethren comes as a prosecutor, the one who is bringing legal cases against us. And we have the crowd of witnesses. These are people who are either alive or dead, who appears in the courts of heaven because in their spirits, they have the truths of the matter that you're dealing with. And others is because they have also been affected by what is affecting you. So the evidence. So for us in the courts of heaven is to bring the evidence to decharter the ancestral liens. Why does the enemy have the right to touch your finances or your health? Because he holds unpaid bill alien, the source. These are the source of these liens or the legal rights or unpaid bills or debts that the enemy use against us. They come from what is called hygrometia in the demonic kingdom, the use of entities, the use of foreign beings against us, or what are called goetic contracts made by your forefathers. So they are goetic contracts either made by your forefathers and mothers or made by you unknowingly, and others have also made these contracts knowingly, and they are facing and suffering consequences because they have not done what needs to be done. They have not done their part. Every time you enter into a contract with a spiritual being, you have to do your part. If you don't do your part, there are consequences. So there are people who suffer consequences because they entered into contract with the spiritual beings, either in their lives or in the lives of their forefathers and mothers. And because of that, they are facing and suffering today. So you find that today you are suffering and facing challenges because yourself or your forefathers and mothers entered into contracts with evil beings. Remember, I'm not saying an evil being or Satan. There are many beings even beyond Satan that are enforcing tragedies and hard time in our lives. And for us to overcome these treaties or these covenants or these ritualistic activities, this is where we step in the courts of heavens, where by the authority in the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach, those contracts, those liens are broken. The enemy is fighting you because he must have a legal case. He must have something that is legitimate to use against you. So, and this is why we do like what we can call a forensic audit. You know that I am suffering like this because of this. So In our journey that we are in now from today, I'm saying it's a 14 days journey. So today is the 13th. We have 12 more days. We shall be looking at which are these entities, what do they do in our lives, and how do we break out of them. And by the time we are through, we shall have broken a lot of reins or a lot of contracts working against us, working against our destiny and purpose. You find that you want to succeed in life, but you can't succeed because there is something the enemy is using against you. So, and when we break these contracts, we'll also be enforcing our relationship in Yeshua HaMashiach and with the heavenlies and with the divine order. So it is for us to break forth or to break out from evil orders and evil protocols and be aligned with the heavenly protocol, the protocols of Yeshua HaMashiach. So we shall be looking at the righteous judge, Yeshua HaMashiach, as our judge. We shall also look at to a recession where we are going to break out from what we call 72 Goetia in our family line. 72 Goetia are 72 entities or demonic orders that have been there in generations that affect us and we without us knowing. So sometimes you see, I'm just fighting against Satan. There is an enemy you call Satan and it is not Satan. And because you can't recognize it, you're just saying Satan, that it keeps operating in your life. Because if you don't know your enemy, one, you can know your enemy in two things: by their name, and they try their level best to hide their name, because if you know their name, you can control them. Number two, the best way, even without knowing their name, is to know the operations. If you know how the enemy is operating in your life, then you can overcome those operations and decharter them, or you break them, and when that happens, the enemy can no longer operate in your life. So it is for you and me, for us to understand how the enemies operates in our lives. And when we know how they operate in our lives and their positioning and in their order, then with that, we become productive and we are set free from our captives, from our captures. Remember when the Satan in the book of Revelation, we find that the dragon falls with a third of the heavenly stars. So there are a lot of demonic order in the spirit that transcends, that are more detailed than just knowing the name, the enemy, or Lucifer. So we know what he came to do. Even when Yeshua was doing the deliverance, he could ask, who are you? And they could say, we are many, we are a region. So we understand who these many are, the regions that they are, or their order, and we see how to overcome them. And we find results and success in our lives. So tomorrow, which will be day 3, we'll unmask the executive branch of darkness. We are going to look at the 3 kings of the shadow kingdom. That is Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Ashtaroth. Lucifer is not Beelzebub and is not Ashtaroth. These are 3 high-ranking demonic order, which you are going to look at them. And we will see how Lucifer affects your life. We will see how Beelzebub affects your life, and Ashtaroth affects your life. And then we see how we can break their cords from our lives. And then from there, we shall also look at the days continue. We shall look at the 3 of them, their subordinate entities, their benches, their subordinate entities. And then we shall also look at the Goetia entities, the 72 demonic entities. And when we understand them and what they use against us, and when we know what these entities they use against us, and we break forth, then we'll enter into that praise of freedom and victory. The reason why most of us miss and we are not succeeding in life is because the enemy has legal contracts with our souls, with our spirits, with our body, with our families, with our finances, with our territory, with the water The enemy has contract with us, with even plants, with the animals, with the air, with the stars, the moon, the skies. So you'll find that when you'll be going through this, you find that the enemy has a lot of things that he has set in the cosmos and contracts against us that he's using against us. So I welcome into this journey. Kindly just subscribe to this channel, follow me, and let me tell you, in the next 14 days, you shall be free. We shall be free from the control of the enemy, from what the enemy is using against us. So this is Kamau Mwangi, and welcome to a new profound journey of freedom and liberty.